Hello, I'm Dr. Nelson. This is a short little video about the death of the point probe. What exactly do we mean? Most of energetic medicine has developed along subtle muscle testing, where some type of point probe device or some type of muscle testing, some subtle muscle control is evolved with the therapist evaluating the patient. This might be a pendulum, might be a point probe, might be a muscle test, might be a Ouija board, some type of subtle muscle control. What we've found, and what all of science has found, is that this subtle muscle control of the therapist controls the event. In the muscle test, when we actually measure the degree of pressure that a tester is applying, we will find that there's a wide variation in the amount of pressure, meaning that oftentimes the testee or the patient can feel that there's more pressure, shares this with the practitioner, and the practitioner says, no, I'm applying the same pressure. We find that the therapist is not. The therapist is not able to measure the amount of pressure. When we measure the amount of pressure that the muscle tester is using, we'll find a wide variation. The patient can feel the difference in the pressure, reports it to the therapist, and the therapist says no. But when we use a book or an actual constant source of pressure, we'll find out that medication testing for nutrients simply doesn't work. The amount of change that happens energetically in regard to different nutrients does not lend itself easily for muscle testing or for point probe. Now let's look at a point probe person, one of the leading experts in the point probe, and let's look at the actual point probe, see what he does.
Yeah.
93 is negative.
What we've seen now is the fact that when he wants a high reading, he goes in fast. When he wants a low reading, he goes in slow. The speed of delivery of the pressure, not the end-all pressure, but how fast he applies the pressure, controls the reading. And we can see that here he is doing completely different things to the same point. Let's look at this again. Once you start to realize this and you go to a point probe therapist and you get checked, what you're going to see is exactly the same thing. The therapist controls the reading. The therapist is able to change the speed of pressure. And if you notice the type of pressure that he applies, if you notice how he spins the point probe slightly in one case and not in another, or how fast he applies it, you'll start to see that he is in control of the results and not your body electric. If it was truly your body electric, why won't he just put an electrode there and just measure it? This is what we do with the QXCI. The QXCI does not involve subtle muscle pressure between the therapist and the patient. We simply apply electrodes and measure this. When we get this, we find a couple of peculiar things. One of them is that electrical reactivity is not just a measure of changing resistance in the body, but also a measure of changing volts and amps. The volts and amps actually give us more indications of how a person reacts to or away from something. When we measure these volts and amps, we want to be able to do it in a double-blind situation, where neither the patient nor the practitioner is aware of what's being tested. This is what happens with the QXCI. But with the other systems, the therapist is always aware. When the therapist is aware and he is asked to repeat, thereby he gets repeatability because he performs the same actions by controlling the speed of delivery of the point probe or the muscle test. If we look at this in the light of true electronics, we should see that according to fractal theory, repeating things just doesn't happen. Let's ask our friend Jeff Goldblum about this.
See, the Tyrannosaur doesn't obey any set patterns or park schedules. It's the essence of chaos.
I'm still not clear on chaos.
It simply deals with predictability in complex systems. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine.
Why?
Did I go too fast? I go too fast. I did a flyby. No, give me that big glass of water. We're going to conduct an experiment. It should be still. The car's bouncing up and down, but that's okay. It's just an example. Now, put your hand flat like a hieroglyphic. Now, Now, let's say a drop of water falls in your hand. Which way is the drop going to roll off? Of which finger, or over the thumb, or the other side?
Thumb. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, now freeze your hand. Don't move. I'm going to do the same thing. Start with the same place again. Which way is it going to roll off, do you think?
Let's say back. Same way.
Same way. Same back. It changed. Why? Because tiny variations, the orientation of the hairs on your hands,
Yeah, well, look at this.
the amount of blood distending your vessels, imperfections in the skin,
Imperfections in the skin.
microscopic, and never repeat and vastly affect the outcome. That's why.
Unpredictability.
What Jeff has already told us is that in a very complex situation, such as the human body, which is as complex a situation as is known, over 200 trillion cells in the human body, a very complex fractal, repeating situations does not happen. That's a fractal law. That's a law of complexity. That's a law of chaos theory. Things don't repeat, and small changes can provoke large changes. Small, tiny little things can provoke large changes in a fractal system. This is the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect accounts for homeopathy. A small little change can have a large effect. Number two, the effect of adaptability. In order for us to live in an energetic world so that we could walk by a computer or work at a computer station, or to be subjected to magnetic forces, we have to be able to adapt to these electrical forces. In other words, our bodies might react to them in the beginning, but then we adapt to the reactions. There's an adaptability of the human being electrically, energetically. So if we were to test people 2-3 times in a row, we should see different results. The patient should adapt to many of the signals. We should not see a duplication. In fact, according to fractal theory and according to adaptability, if we were to perform an energetic medicine test on a patient and got exactly the same readings before and after, that would be an indication that the test was invalid because it should not repeat. Or that would be an indication that the patient is extremely sick, because only when you're extremely sick would you get something like that. So the adaptability in the fractal would open us to understanding the QXCI, where we could test a patient and see different readings. But when the point probe person is double-blinded and does not know what he's testing, then we're going to see that the changes of his pressure and speed of pressure, he will be able to control the results. It is not the patient that is making these readings. It is not the patient that's making the scores. It's the mind of the therapist. This is happening in the muscle test. This is happening in the point probe when we are doing medication testing. To just test a simple muscle is not the case here. But to be able to test the reactivity of a person to a substance, such as in medication testing, we're going to see that changes will stimulate that. Another factor in muscle testing, as well as in point probe, is suggestibility. A subtle level of hypnosis that the muscle tester can apply to make you want to be weak to sugar and want to be strong to, say, vitamin C. This subtle bit of suggestibility, this subtle hypnosis, also is a factor that has been taken out of the QXCI, because in a double-blind situation, the therapist and the patient not being aware of what's being tested, we get a much more clear result. A clear result that does not depend on total repeatability. If we do the test twice, we will see that there are certain trends that will be repeatable. We will see that certain things will come up. It will not be completely random between one test and the other. There will be a correlation, an 80-85% correlation. But out of 7,000 items, we probably won't see the same items come at the top, because on one page of the system, we only show about 40-50 items. And if we're showing 40-50 items out of 7,000, that's not even 1%. So we have to really look at this a little differently and realize that not getting the exact same items at the top would be an indication that the QXCI is working, not an indication that it's not. The vast majority of energetic medicine people are using these subtle muscle systems through muscle testing, point probe, rub plate, pendulum, many other things. Thereby, their unconscious is able to control the results. Many times this is not conscious. We can see proof of this when we look at the different studies and all of the little movies, including The Prisoners of Silence. If we look at this, we can see how the unconscious of the therapist steps in and can take control unconsciously. This discovery, this insight of the therapist controlling the situation really puts an extreme amount of doubt on all of energetic medicine. Energetic medicine really should be using double-blind methods such as the QXCI. But since it's not, and since a wide host of doctors, practitioners throughout the entire world are doing work in energetic medicine with this subtle muscle, there's a strong tendency to want to shoot the messenger who's coming along and popping the bubble. I've been doing this for years because as we explore this in each and every case, we will find out that the point probe, the muscle tester, the rub plate, the pendulum, are subject to the unconscious movements of the therapist and not the patient. And if it was properly motivated and sold as such, there'd be no problem, but it's not. These people push it as if it's some type of energetic medicine and some type of system. To that end, they try to shoot the messenger, me, and have extreme attacks on my personal character. But I hope that maybe you can realize through this little video that some of these personal attacks are really attempts to divert your attention from the truth. And the truth is that energetic medicine works, but energetic medicine needs to be separated from subtle muscle control. So I hope that we've been informative, and I hope that you will look at the rest of the studies and all the other little videos regarding the death of the point probe so that you can make a more informed choice as to what you might be purchasing in the future or what you might be using in the future with your patients. This is Dr. Nelson signing off.